Now I'd like to call upon Dr. Prajapati to come to the stage and deliver his inaugural address. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I am excited, and it's not because I've had coffee, because I'm among the believers. Today I'm going to share the experience of a massive project and how we manage that project and how we are managing that project. And that project is called Government of India. It's a complex project. Perhaps it appears to be not working in the short run, but I shall be talking about the kinds of changes that we hope to bring about by changing the DNA. Changing the DNA of something is much more difficult than doing cosmetic surgery. So I shall be sharing the experience of performance management in government. When I talk to project management professionals, I find such tremendous similarity that I think the two words performance and project are synonymous. In fact, project management is not an end in itself. It's a means towards an end. And that end is improved performance of whatever you're doing, improved outcomes of whatever you're doing. So therefore, there's an enormous similarity between what many of you do and what we are doing in the government, and I thought that story would be interesting at the level that it is being applied. The project covers 80 departments of the Government of India, 800 responsibility centers that fall under those 80 departments, and now 10 states of the Union have adopted this system. So I shall be sharing the experience of this massive project that we are undertaking. I'm going to there could be many ways of presenting it. The main instrument at the heart of project management and performance management in government is called the Results Framework Document. And I shall be focusing on that because the system is called Performance Monitoring and Evaluation System. It's far too large, too complex. I'll focus on this aspect of this particular system. I would like to cover these points. I may not have the time to do so, but I will leave behind this PowerPoint so that you can go through the details. And I'm here to actually start a dialogue. I hope that you will be in touch with us. You'll visit our website and we will have this dialogue. No one lecture is enough to have the conversation on such an important topic. And I'll only be introducing the topic, that let's continue to have the dialogue. And I invite you, I'm very good at replying and having the dialogue on this, and we want to learn from you. Among the reasons that I am excited to be here is that I hope many of you will join this project and bring your expertise, that ultimately, as the president of Harvard University once said, that you can have the best medical school, the best school of business, the best law school, the best education school, and Harvard has all those. But unless you have a government that works, all those things will not have an impact on the welfare of the society. It's like rearranging the chairs on the deck of Titanic if you don't fix the government. So the biggest project to fix is government. You can have an excellent project, but if the environment is vitiated, if the ship is sinking, you will sink with that ship, no matter how efficient, how effective, and how ethical you are. So we need to save the ship first before we arrange the chairs on the deck of that ship. So that really is the... So here is what I like to cover. I may skip some of this with your permission, but this is what we will do. We will talk about perceptions about government performance. What do people think? explanation about government performance, meaning of government performance. What does it really mean at that level? What are we talking about when we say government performance? And how to improve government performance, international best practice and options, the Indian experience in doing so, the lessons of experience, what we have learned so far, and how that relates to project management and what you do at a micro level. So we will cover these, God willing. But before I move forward, I want to be transparent with this wonderful introduction that was given. Indeed, you would have gathered that I am an economist, practicing, preaching, teaching economist, and have been that for a long time. So people, the first question you will ask me in the tea break, and I might as well answer collectively, so what is an economist doing in the government of India as Secretary Performance Management? Indeed, they ask, what is Secretary Performance Management? What exactly do you do? Because people have heard of Defense Secretary, Home Secretary, even Law Secretary, Secretary Agriculture, but never Secretary Performance Management. So it is proper for me to introduce that. And to do so, I'll use a story from economics. And I'm sure many of you have done economics. And you would know this story, so please forgive me if you have already heard that story. But that's a good way to introduce what I do precisely. The story is that most people, if you ask them, they think economics is like looking for a black cat in a dark room. That's what they think what economics is. Within which I have specialized in economic theory. In fact, I've written a book in that area, a textbook. And that they say economic theory is like a blind man looking for a black cat in a dark room. Believe it or not, within economic theory, I have specialized in something called econometrics. And that they say is like a blind man looking for a black cat in a dark room when the cat is not even there. Secretary Performance Management to Government of India goes beyond that. Secretary Performance Management is a blind man looking for a black cat when the cat is not there and he keeps saying, I have got it, I have got it. So I'm afraid I'm going to claim quite a bit, but I urge you to take everything with a big pinch of salt, and I will be raising questions. I think the questions are legitimate. The answers are only the lessons of my experience, the journey that we have undertaken. Before I move further, I want to also add another bullet point. I was recently asked to speak on why India is behind the Millennium Development Goals. And all of you know what Millennium Development Goals are. The goals that India has agreed to with all member states of the United Nations. They include things like reducing poverty, reducing child mortality, infant mortality rate. All those targets are there. We are behind. So I was asked to reflect on that. I did some research, found the best answer was in the website of the UNDP. You can't read it. I will just expand the answers. They said there are three reasons why India is behind achieving Millennium Development Goals. One is, they said, ineffective delivery of public services. 2, weak accountability systems. And 3, gaps in the implementation. Wherever I have presented, most people tend to agree. They say, yes, those reasons seem to be reasonable. And in fact, that is one of our goals, to fix these loopholes in the implementation cycle. Allow me one more diversion before I go to my bullet points, and I will come to the bullet points, but I didn't get my hair to be gray just like that. It comes from experience. And this was in Egypt many, many years back. I was talking to a very charged up, motivated audience like yourselves of civil servants and public managers. Very senior and a big auditorium. 10 minutes into my lecture, they started to walk out. And I really wondered what happened. And I thought I had said something culturally inappropriate and annoyed the audience, and that's why they were unhappy with me. Till someone pulled me on the side and said, Prof, There has been the worst earthquake in the history of Egypt in 150 years. And I, like a fool, did not notice. I thought it was a developing country, lights had gone down, they had put on the generator so the things were shaking a little bit. I thought, the usual developing country syndrome. But then I had tremendous regret after that. Because I was merrily going through my bullet points, first bullet, second bullet, and here the audience had left. And I'd come all the way. So since then I have decided, whenever I make a presentation, I tell the main points first before I go to the bullet points. So if something were to happen and you had to leave, I would have done my job. And that's the first lesson of project management. This project lecture is a project too, and better get your results quickly and not worry about following the strict procedure of all the bullet points 1, 2, and 3. So here is what really I believe in, some of the crux of what I will be talking about. And then we can go, depending on the time, go through the bullet points. The first, as an economist, as a development economist for the last 40 years, in 1969 I started development economics, worked in the finest institutions, development institutions, taught development economics in the finest universities. Yet I don't have the answer to what is the theory of development. In fact, nobody has the answer. My teacher, my guru, Professor Amartya Sen at the London School of Economics, has got Nobel Prize, but has no answer to what causes development. Otherwise, we would all be developed. So there is no answer. But I have noticed, working with a large number of countries, one pattern. That countries can be divided into two broad categories. One group where the gap between what they say and what they do is narrow. The other group where the gap between what they say and what they do is huge. Guess which group of country develops faster? The former, where the gap between rhetoric and action is less. So it's all about implementation. Today, if you want a good policy, you can Google, you'll get 10,000 hits on health policy. Every organization worth its salt has a health policy toolkit. You can cut and paste, get a health policy, pretty close to what you want. But try implementing it. That's where the challenge lies. Not making policies, not making laws, but implementing them. And countries that have the capacity to implement policies, projects, programs are the ones will win the race for the race of the nations. That is the source of competitive advantage of nations today. The effectiveness and implementation of policies and projects, not making policies and projects. In the days of CNN, Economist, and media, everybody pretty much knows the information is easy to get. But what you do with that information is what counts. Now, implementation depends, it's not rocket science. You don't need a degree from Harvard or MIT for implementation. Implementation, in my view, is simply about effective follow-up and monitoring. If you just follow up, sometimes people say it's easy for you to say you're in the Prime Minister's office or Cabinet Secretariat, anything you say probably happens. Believe me, it does not happen. But things that we follow up happen. So there are hundreds of memos that are sent out, they don't get implemented, but you call and follow up, they get implemented. So effective follow-up and monitoring is the source of implementation. Third, effective follow-up and monitoring does not depend on huge amount of information. It's not about the quantity of follow-up and monitoring. It's not about how much of it you do. 24 hours you're awake and calling for information. That's not what we mean by effective follow-up and monitoring. Effective follow-up and monitoring focuses on the quality of monitoring and evaluation. And we will talk about what is the quality versus the quantity of monitoring and evaluation. People confuse. They think we're doing a lot. I'm 24/7, I'm monitoring and evaluating, yet things are not happening. But you're doing the wrong thing. Many people have tried that. Degree of accountability for results is synonymous with evaluation, but evaluation is not everything. This is the gap between, or the difference between monitoring and evaluation. As all of you know, you're all professionals, so I'm not going to belabor this point, except to point out that when you are taking an aeroplane to go from point A to B, if the pilot lands you safely, you would call that good flight. And that's evaluation. But what the pilot has to do to get you safely from point A to B, he or she has to look at a dashboard full of altitude, the headwinds, the tailwinds, temperature inside, outside. I mean, if you see the cockpit, it's full of these meters. And believe me, they're not there for cosmetic reasons. He has to watch them. That's monitoring. But what we care as passengers and clients is just getting safely to point B. That is essentially the difference between monitoring and evaluation. In government, we have used the traditional instrument of evaluation was budgets. Then we said that's not enough because they don't focus on other things, so they came up with performance budgets. They said that's not enough. In 2006, the government of India introduced the outcome budgets, and now we have come to RFD. The difference between these is budgets, as I mentioned, focused on the financial inputs alone. Then performance budgets focused on, in addition to financial inputs, on activities and outputs. Outcome budgets went beyond that. They focused on financial inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. RFD goes even beyond that. It is the most broad definition of performance, of evaluation. It looks at every aspect of government evaluation. Now, these things are not very different. The RFD stands for Results Framework Document, which I will talk in a minute. This is the evolution of management technology. Like I hold this phone in my hand, and I had a phone 20 years back, but this is a different ball game. It's like 4G and whatever. But you could say you have the same phone. So RFD is part of management by objectives. It's the evolution of that technology from where it was to where it is. And I will talk about it. You may be wondering, so what is the big difference? I'm not going to bore you with this wonderful chart which evaluates the evaluation systems, but I'll focus on three things to highlight the difference between the approaches so far and what we are now doing in the government. In all these previous approaches, as you will notice, budget, performance budget, outcome budget, it's no, no, no. RFD says yes. To give you the first one, are the objectives prioritized? In previous approaches to performance management, and hence project management, basically, if you went to your boss and said, you had given me 15 things and I have done 12 things, how would you evaluate that performance? How would you expect the boss to evaluate the performance? Now, it depends. If the 3 things that you didn't do were the most important core objectives of your organization and you did the dinky little things, the 12 things, then it's not good performance. So in all the previous approaches, we never prioritized things. For the first time in Government of India, we've started to prioritize. The Secretary to Government of India is asked at the beginning of the year, what are your priorities? Not list 100 things, but the most important things. So your entire management and your team can focus on those priorities. So that's a big difference between, yet it is management by objective, still it is different. Similarly, let's take the last one. Are the deviations agreed ex ante? Now, many of you project management professionals will find this 101 level, but believe me, in all previous approaches, we had a single point target. You would say that you have to build 7,000 kilometers of road. Now, if you went to your boss and said, sir, instead of 7,000, I have only made 6,700 kilometers of road. Will that be good or bad performance? It depends. If your boss likes you, he would say, well, Mr. Trivedi, that's close enough. Let's go and have a beer. If your boss does not like you, he'd say, Mr. Trivedi, you're a nice man, but I'm sorry, you never achieve your targets. So it becomes very subjective. Any deviation from target, how is it to be evaluated? So what we have done now is that we now give a 5-point scale, as you will see, where deviations are agreed with the secretary and the minister, that what constitutes excellent performance and what constitutes poor performance, the range is agreed to. So wherever you fall, there is no subjective evaluation of your performance, but we know precisely where you are. I'll show you in a moment. So that's the big progress we have made. I'm going to just go through these quick points and then we can start our bullet points. The evaluation techniques for management control in government are different from evaluation techniques for strategic controls. People say, what's the point of doing evaluation? After all, every 5 years, people elect a government and they do the ultimate evaluation. Either they keep the government or they throw the government out. But that's different. Elections are for determining the strategic direction in which the government will go. Will it go left, right, center? So you elect a government, given the mandate. But there is no guarantee that it will actually move in that direction. It's a promise that I will go left. You say, okay, I like that promise, so you elect a government. Doesn't mean it will go left or right. For that, you need a performance management system in the government to move the entire government machinery in that direction. That's why you need performance management system as a complement to democracy, not as a substitute for it. Democracies are ineffective if they don't have a performance management system. Evaluation is one of the 3 systems required for performance improvement, and I'm sure you agree for project management. We need good information. If you don't have a good information system, you can't make progress. If you don't evaluate it properly, information system will be useless. You can have good information, but you don't know how to read and evaluate that. You can have the best information system, the best evaluation system, but if you don't have an incentive system, believe me, you cannot improve performance, or you can have effective project management. People must be incentivized. So for ultimate delivery, you need a good information system, good evaluation system, and a good incentive system. And we are working on all 3 fields. I'll talk about it. The 7th point is accountability. Unfortunately, trickles down. It never trickles up. What happens in India is we hold the lower accountable, but never the top accountable. And the lessons of experience around the world is you have to hold the top accountable, then the rest will be held accountable. If you hold the bottom accountable, there's no guarantee that the top will be accountable. So you must start at the top. So what we have done is not put this system for anybody, but only the 80 secretaries to the government of India. We evaluate their performance. It's their business. They are the big boys and girls. They must figure out how to do the management of their department. It's not our business to micromanage them. Finally, evaluation is different from explanation. In the name of evaluation in the government, mostly I see is explanation. Why things couldn't be done. Of course, there is always a reason why things couldn't be done. But what we are interested is in the evaluation, that they were not done. It was good, bad, or ugly. Why it is good, bad, or ugly is a different debate and less important in my view. The essence of what I have said so far is that economic development, in our view, depends on effective implementation of policies, programs, and projects, which we believe depends on effective follow-up and monitoring. And the instrument that we are focusing right now, we believe the